Hi, I'm John Franzen, speaking to you from my kitchen in Santa Cruz. Back in 1980, when I was a student in Europe, the food and drink of Italy were a revelation for me, really a life-changing discovery. But when I went back there many years later, I couldn't find any restaurants serving the food that I remembered. My Italian friends told me I now had to go to people's homes or to restaurants that adhered to slow food principles. So the next time I went to Italy, the only places I ate were the ones recommended by the Slow Food Guide. For me back then, it was all about finding good food. Only later did I understand that larger issues are at stake, that slow food principles are critical to sustaining a livable planet. So it's a particular honor and pleasure to be included in this conference. We're told by the European Commission that Europe aspires to be the world's first green continent. As far as I can tell, the Commission's only real measure of greenness is climate change. If Europe reduces its net carbon emissions to zero, it can be considered a green continent. Apparently, it doesn't matter if the continent has no insects. It doesn't matter if the continent's agricultural policy is heavily reliant on pesticides and fertilizers, committed to monoculture, destructive of hedgerows and natural meadows, polluting of rivers and groundwater. It doesn't matter if the continent's forests are biologically sterile or outright dying. It doesn't matter if every rural landscape is blighted with wind turbines and solar farms. It doesn't matter if the continent's lakes and seas are overfished. As long as your net carbon emissions are zero, you can still be a green continent. And yes, I'm aware that I'm an American, so let me hasten to add that North America is even farther from being a green continent than Europe is. The only tiny thing to be said in America's defense is that we don't pretend otherwise. The tragedy of making climate change the only measure of greenness is that it's now extremely unlikely that the world will curb its carbon emissions in time to avert catastrophe. Exclusive focus on climate change, a fight that we've already lost, diverts attention and resources from an equally important measure of greenness, biodiversity. Unlike the fight against climate change, the battle to preserve biodiversity can be fought on countless fronts. And crucially, many of those fights are winnable. Why should we care about biodiversity? One argument is that it's the ethical thing to do. Human beings now control the destiny of a million different species of plant and animal, and we have a unique responsibility not to destroy them. There's also an aesthetic argument. Thriving natural ecosystems are too beautiful to let ourselves lose them forever. And then there are the economic arguments. Tropical rainforests contain a multitude of unstudied species, many of which might prove to have beneficial human uses. Farmers around the world rely on diverse populations of insect pollinators. Wild plants are a storehouse of genetic material that could strengthen the resilience of our food crops. Perhaps the strongest economic argument is one that I'm sure you're all familiar with, the health of our soil. Healthy soil contains a multitude of life forms, bacteria, fungi, worms, and insects, and other invertebrates. Healthy soil farmed with a view to biodiversity is inexhaustibly productive. Today, in a world of industrial agriculture, we're losing more and more of that biodiversity. Denatured soil requires ever more fertilizer and pesticides and a tighter and tighter death spiral. We're in the midst of a grand experiment, the annihilation of soil biodiversity, that I'm very much afraid is not going to end well. To me, these arguments add up to a powerful case for preserving biodiversity. But it's important that we not use the word the way climate activists use the words climate change. Global warming really is global, too vast for any individual action to make a difference. But biodiversity, while equally important in the global picture, also has enormous meaning locally. Biodiversity is the hawks that used to breed in your neighborhood until the wind farm was built. Biodiversity is the hedgehogs you used to see at sunset before the common agricultural policy wiped out their habitat. Biodiversity is the frogs and the butterflies at your local wetland before it was drained. Biodiversity is the amazing variety of fish you could find in the Mediterranean until a few decades ago. Climate change is an abstraction, and it's hard to motivate people with abstractions. People are much more likely to act on behalf of things they love. And because biodiversity is specific and palpable, the song of a nightingale, the smell of healthy soil, the feel of it in your hand, it makes love possible. Love might move you to pay more attention to where your food comes from and how it's produced. It might move you to support the local farmers who are doing it right. It might move you to take action to preserve the wild places nearest to where you live. It might move you to work for politicians who want to reduce the human impact on the natural world around you. Just because these actions are small and individual and local, it doesn't mean they're meaningless. Quite the opposite. Actions inspired by love are the planet's only hope. Thank you very much.